Welcome to Hexology. I'm Water Elemental.
And I'm What2.
And today we're going to be going over the spoiler for Alpha's Hex.
All the cards that are currently available in the Alpha version of the game.
Yep, this is not the final version. Not all the cards that appeared in the previous reveals will be in there. These are all the ones that just appear in the basic Alpha.
And we'll talk about, as far as a couple of them that we know are going to be in the game that were actually not in the Alpha yet, but it's interesting that they're not there yet.
Yeah, these are all the ones that were programmed and ready for the Alpha.
All right, and we have a lovely place to start at the top of the list. We have one of my personal favorites, and I think it's one of yours as well.
It's so flavorful.
Oh yeah, it's Argus, Herald of Doom.
It is a 12-cost, 5/5 troop artifact, Doomsday device, unique. With flight, at the beginning of your turn, reveal Argus from your hand, and it gets a permanent -1 to its cost. You may exhaust it to void target creature.
Oh, not even target creature, target card. So constants, artifacts, whatever you want.
It's it's one of those cards that it's there mainly for lore purpose, but it seems like people would try to find a way to break it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those cards that it's not going to find a lot of play competitively at all, but it's so fun because if you have it in your hand, you basically sit there and be like, here it is, one more turn. Here it is, one more turn, and they see it as it goes down and down, and they're just waiting for it to happen. So it just has so much, yeah, like you said, it has so much flavor to it because it kind of changes how the game is because they have to look forward to it.
And this card seems like one that would be really good in like PvE environments where you're playing against like a very hard stall deck where this could be coming into play more. Where like, okay, I'm going to be fighting a raid boss or something. This might be a good card to put in just so I can get rid of a lot of its cards late game if it extends out, because we don't know what they're going to be yet, but this seems like a card that will be very viable in that format.
Absolutely. Next up, we're looking at some robots. They're fairly generic. I was actually kind of disappointed as far as the robot tribal, what they're doing. There's a couple interesting mechanics, but I don't think it's going to be too viable.
Yeah, a lot of the robots kind of scale off the fact that when they die, you can add additional attack or defense depending on what the card says.
Talking about Axebot.
Yeah, Axebot is definitely one of them. And there's just other ones where it's mainly a lot of death situations where if the card dies, then you get the effect.
Well, that, and I know there's one of the legendary ones which we'll get to later that can turn any artifact into a 5/5. There's just not much strength to it, but it's just the first set. We'll see about stuff. One thing I do really like that was an excellent choice for them in the set is things like Chaos Key. Chaos Key, as well as another one, Satchel Charge, are artifact card removal. Where basically, even in colors such as Wild in that green, this allows them to still have those 2 burn spells or these void target card spells that lets them actually have an answer. So it's very good for the balance. I like what they did.
And the problem I see with Chaos Key, though, is the card itself costs 2, but you need 5 energy for you to actually void the card and then void another card itself. So it does cost 7 to void a card.
It does, but I mean, for no color restraints to be able to take care of an artifact, a constant, a troop, basically any permanent that's on there, I think that I like that they have it just as an option for colors that don't normally have access to those.
Yep.
That destruction.
Another really good one is actually right next to it. Chargebot. It's a 1-cost, 1/1 artifact troop. When this troop enters play, gain a charge. This one is really good if you focus on your champion ability. And if your champion ability is the key to the deck, this card will be an excellent choice. For 1, to get an extra charge.
Play, absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
So I think that would be really interesting. We don't know as far as too many of the champion abilities yet. I mean, there's a few of them that we know, like creating a Spark Elemental, as far as getting a Battle Hopper, giving an enemy troop -1/-1, a few things. But I mean, for decks that are going to center around it, oh man, it's going to be an interesting one. Command Tower, regular Swarm, get everybody buffed up shenanigans.
Yep, it's a 3-cost artifact that gives all troops +1 attack.
So Shinhair, we're looking at you.
Shinhair and a lot of like lower cost cards just get buffed.
Construction plans for Warhulk. A Warhulk is a 5/5 with Crush, so it's a little expensive that you have to exhaust 5 dwarves and or robots to get a 5/5.
But the thing is, though, it's a 2-cost, so if you are playing really fast and you have a lot of smaller artifacts, maybe you're playing Workbot or something like that.
I see it could do something, but it's a little expensive as far as how many things you have to exhaust for it.
Yeah, but late game, a 2-cost, and then at the end of the turn, tap everything. Like,
Yeah,
if you have...
I can see it.
Since there are artifacts, like, maybe some artifacts just aren't doing it for you.
For sure. One right next to it that I know I want to talk about is Cosmic Totem, which is a little interesting. There's not... I don't see Mill being very viable right now, but I guess Cosmic Totem is still something to be sideboarded if you run into it.
Well, you always want a deck shuffle in some cases. There's a lot of really hard control decks that just stall for time, and maybe you're having a deck that has a lot of smaller cards. Maybe you're playing Inspire, where you need some of those cards back. Just shuffle them back in your deck.
I wouldn't do Inspire because there's a card later which likes things in the graveyard a lot.
Yeah, but again, this is a really good card for draft. Draft or PvP.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's good graveyard return. Worst case scenario, if you're like, oh, I need this guy really bad.
Next card is Dwarven Turbine. 1 cost, pay 1 and tap to ready another artifact. It could be very good. We've seen some decent artifacts in the
especially Argus we were talking about.
Argus.
Be able to kill another or avoid another card. It's got potential. I can see it.
Yeah, you just got to depend on what artifacts you're playing. There's a lot of really good ones out there, and if you get to tap 2 things or respond and ready another artifact like as a blocker stuff, so it has a lot of uses. It's very versatile.
Mm-hmm. Next up, we have a big one as far as one that'll be very interesting. Eternal Guardian. Flight, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and other troops you control. It's a 5/5. I think it's kind of like a Platinum Angel, but it just prevents damage and it prevents damage to other creatures you control. So I think it's gonna be interesting. I don't know if it's something I'd want to build a deck around, but
it's a very good card if you know you need to stall for time, or if you're very worried for board wipes. Like, this card will be like, I don't want any of my guys get hurt, and it's late enough into the game that this will be my big drop.
Yeah, very very specific board wipes because it only keeps away damage. Hex Engine is a good mana ramping for any color.
Yeah, it definitely gives you 2 charges for 4 every turn.
Resource ramping, gotta knock that habit. So getting some charge, similar to the charge bot we were seeing earlier. If they're based around your champion ability, then Induction Coil is going to be good.
Induction Coil is pretty good. 3 to gain a charge again if you're really focused on using a champion ability.
And that's going to be a must-have as well.
Infiltrator bot, I kind of like this card just for flair's sake. If you really want to do a very hard push deck, it's a 5 cost for a 3/2 that will say this troop can't be blocked this turn. Mm-hmm. Very good if you have like a very defensive enemy deck, because there's a lot of defenders. Malfunctioning Warbot's pretty funny. I just like the art, how he's just blowing up and he's running towards barbed wire. He's like, I'm gonna die.
And I love the idea of it dealing 1 damage to a random champion.
So it could be very beneficial to you for 2/2 for 2 cost. It could deal them 1 damage, but at the same time it could just backfire, and you can have those games where it just keeps hitting you and hitting you and hitting you.
You know there's going to be one game, though, where someone plays it and it deals 1 damage to the enemy every turn for the rest of the game and it kills them. Someone's going to record that and put it on YouTube.
He only plays, like, manufacturing warbots.
Sapper's Charge. We mentioned that a little bit earlier, but now you get to see the true power.
It's a 1 cost artifact that says pay 2, sacrifice this artifact, deal 2 damage to target champion or troop. Very, very potent, I gotta say.
It's a burn spell for any color with no color requirements. That's classy. That's something that I would expect to see in a fair number of decks.
Next up is Secret Laboratory, 3 cost, pay 1 and exhaust to draw a card, then choose and discard a card. Very, very powerful. Most cards in the set say when you draw, you have to discard at random. But this lets you pick and choose, so you're going through and getting the cards you need and getting rid of others. And again, for certain like combos, that will work really well.
Oh yeah, as far as being able to cycle every turn, that's a great thing for even for limited, to be able to dump all those lands or dump all those resources. Gosh darn it! Kill me now. All right. Oh. That's another one that's interesting for specifically for it'll make artifact decks very, very interesting, very exciting. Is a Slaughter Gear, the Renegade War Factory. What you do is if you pay 3 resources, you can turn another artifact you control and into a 5/5. So if you've just been dumping like little
Worker bots.
Yeah, worker bots or even sapper charges that just never went off, and you're like, you know what? It would be awesome if this was a 5/5 crush. You just feel like you can turn it into that. So I think this will add a lot of flavor to artifact heavy decks.
And not only is that, it's a 3/6 for 6, so at least it has a high amount of defense, so it's not really weak when it comes into play. So it's going to take a bit for you to actually get rid of it.
Absolutely, because there's very little that can take out a 3/6 that's outside of blood, and blood can only do it with murder or extinction, which we will get to later.
Next up, this is one you really want to talk about. Is Sliver of the Immortal Spear.
Sliver of the Immortal Spear is a 2-cost artifact that you exhaust it, and you create to create another Sliver of the Immortal Spear, and put it into your deck. So you get kind of another card shuffled in, and if you exhaust 5 of them, meaning that you have to at least get one that you created, you deal 5,000 damage to target champion. So this one is one that honestly I really want to run in PvP just for like a wonky other win condition. However, I would be shocked if this did not get a very significant nerf very early, because not for the PvP situation, for the PvE situation.
Yes, this card seems very, very powerful, especially again with the fact that we don't know how long the games are going to be, if there's going to be any control decks, how the decks are going to be able to stand up against several people playing against them. And this brings the question of, will every deck require you to play Silver Spear because it's just that powerful for the cost?
As far as within a PvE environment, because if you're looking at a raid and you have the raid boss having a certain amount of life there,
and a certain deck to be
and
playing
everyone's
against.
just trying to race up to get the damage to that point, no one's going to be able to outdo 5,000 damage at whatever turn that it gets to Sliver of the Immortal Spear. It might take 10 turns if you're running a deck that just cycles through everything. It'd be very hard to not out damage something like that.
And
if not impossible.
And if this is a multiplayer situation, it says exhaust 5 spears, not destroy them. So the next turn, if there's another player in play, you can reuse the spear.
Oh yeah.
So it's a very powerful card, very interesting. I love the flavor to it.
Yes.
But it seems like there needs to be some more testing before we can actually see the full power of this.
I think it's not broken in PvP. It is broken in PvE, depending on how the raid bosses are formed. That's my personal opinion regarding it. Awesome card, though.
Next up is the Fate Rack. It is a 3-cost artifact. Pay 1 and exhaust. Target champion buries the top 2 cards of their deck. Simple milling mechanism.
Yeah, mill 2 per turn. It's not that great. Mill doesn't have too much in the set so far. We'll have to see where it goes. Let's see.
Volcanon. I love the name of it. That's why I bring it up. It's a 5-cost artifact. Exhaust a dwarf or robot you control. Deal 3 damage to target champion. Exhaust 2 dwarves and or robots you control. Ready this artifact. This card seems to be a very nice bird spell. Like if you're playing like a red dwarf bird with artifacts, this seems like something you should run because there's no cost to activate it, and it has a way to ready it. So,
in artifact heavy decks, similar to how this Slaughter Gear, I believe it was,
yes,
is going to give that one a lot of flavor and make it more viable. I think Volcanon is going to do the same thing, because you can do it basically at the end of their turn. Basically say, okay, I have all of my stuff I left unexhausted, so I can block if I need to. But at the end of your turn, I'm going to deal you 3, and then if I have 3 more dwarves and or robots available, I'm going to deal you 3 more, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think it does have a lot of flavor and makes it so it's worth trying. I'm still leery about robot tribal, but we'll see.
Yeah, but the next card we're going to talk about, the last of the artifacts, is Worker Bot Factory. 1-cost artifact. When a robot or dwarf enters play under your control, add an assembly counter to this artifact. Exhaust it to remove 4 assembly counters from play from this artifact, and create a worker bot and put it into play. It doesn't seem like it could gain a lot of speed, but if you're playing a deck that is fast enough, you can accumulate a lot of these worker bots.
I would like it more if it was 3. God forbid if it was 2 assembly counters.
2 would be way too harsh.
I think with the cost being 1, I understand that it's an alright card. I just wish it was a little better.
Yeah,
personally.
it limits yourself to robots or dwarves, and what's interesting is I wonder if this scales off itself, where you get to put a counter on it when the worker bot comes into play, because it says remove 4 counters, play worker bot. Does when the worker bot come into play, it is a robot entering play, does it get another counter?
I'd have to assume so, but we'd have to see what happens in game.
The programming on that. It's
which, I mean, it might not be definitive to actually see it in the alpha, because I have seen stuff happen in the alpha, like someone playing a Pack Raptor that doesn't get any buffs from the other Pack Raptor, and he's like, what's going on? And I've just got this 1/1 here. What is it? And then he tried blocking with it to see if it was just a graphical error. Nope. Nope, it was not a happy time.
So that's one of the ones where we gotta look into and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for this section. We'll be uploading other videos up throughout the next couple of weeks, one for each color in the game, from Wild, Blood, Ruby, Sapphire, and Diamond. So keep an eye out for that. We'll be having an updated playlist as the time goes on. So come check us out and subscribe down below, or check us out on our main channel. Until then, see you guys next time.